I would like to start my presentation with a personal story that's also the reason for the research. In 2015, I've done this life and counseling test to see what my talents and aptitudes could help when choosing a career. And the test came with the result of my inclination for the arts. Well, fast forward a couple of years and I am studying to become a designer. And I'm going back at the core, data and creativity. Can creativity be quantified? Well, you might say, why measure creativity? Why not define it? Well, we are designers, and creativity defines our identity, and I think it's an honest question to ask if we could really measure it. How to start a scientific research? Well, with even more questions. For example, I asked myself, what hypothesis can I formulate based on the research question? And what experiments can I design to prove or disprove the hypothesis? Environment and time. I first needed to check when I am the most productive at a creative task. How much does my environment at a time of day affect my creativity? And the first hypothesis was that the time of day influences my performance of a creative task. Being a person that prefers working at night, I predicted that I would get the best results during the second part of the day. To prove that hypothesis, or at least to test that hypothesis, I created experiment 1, how to simulate a design project, research, analysis, and creation. So for 15 minutes, I would be reading and then writing about what I read, and then creating a poster for another 5 minutes about the whole 10 minutes before. And these are the experimental variables of the time to check the hypothesis. This is a quick demonstration of how the experiment went down. The data show that the most productive part of the day is the afternoon, with 5 pages read and 133 words written in 10 minutes. But the numbers only show a slight preference for the night, not strong enough to prove the hypothesis. The actual conclusion was that repetition influences the numerical result in the most significant way, because the last experiment was the one that also ranked the highest in numbers. The second part of my research was looking at ideation, which is the opposite way of looking at creation. First one was external expression of creativity. This one is the internal one, because ideation is the process of creating ideas and thinking in a creative way. The second hypothesis is the process of ideation increases the body's stress level even in a sitting position. The mind's intense work can set in motion the internal activity of the body and reflect in the measurements. So the second experiment is comparing the DV values before and after the 15 minutes of ideation. Based on that, I predicted that if I ideate for 15 minutes, I will see an increase from my temperature, blood pressure, and heart rate. The DV are dependent variables, which I also measured during the experiment: temperature, blood pressure, and heart rate. And these are the 3 steps of the experiment. The results actually were that the majority of all these dependent variables decreased because I was ideating in a sitting position and the mind's process is not strong enough to provoke significant body stress reaction in contrast with the relaxed position of the body. So it was bringing down all those dependent variables that I talked about that I hoped that they would spike. Without an external output of the mind, these measurements do not reflect the creative internal activity. Now what? My experiments failed to quantify creativity because they didn't reach an answer. Well, you can see that they were bad experiments because they didn't work, but I think they're the perfect combination between trial and error to prove myself the impossibility of measuring creativity. The initial research question is still open. Nevertheless, my research led me to an even bigger question, but I'm embracing the uncertainty of the non answer and not having a finalized research and project. Because loving the journey before the destination is what a creative person does.